A millionaire returns to his ex-wife after 5 long years, and a single, unexpected gesture from him has the power to completely rewrite both their destinies, revealing a love that time could not erase. The thick air of Grandma's Flavor restaurant was a mix of fried grease, garlic, and despair. Park Seo-joon, standing discreetly near the entrance, felt the smell invade his nostrils, a stark antithesis to the sterile, luxurious environments he frequented. His eyes, accustomed to urban panoramas of skyscrapers and designer interiors, swept over the modest establishment. Formica tables, plastic chairs, and a counter where dishes piled up. But he wasn't there to judge the decor. His gaze fixed on the semi-open kitchen, where steam and the clatter of dishes were constant. And there she was, Kim Ji-woo, 5 years. 5 years that felt like an eternity, and at the same time a painful blink of an eye. She was different. Her hair, once shiny and well-kept, was now tied in a loose bun, a few rebellious strands clinging to her sweaty forehead. Her face, which he remembered as so vibrant and full of life, was pale, with deep, dark circles that betrayed sleepless nights and days of exhaustion. Her shoulders, once erect and confident, were hunched under the weight of a stack of dirty dishes she carried to the sink. A knot tightened in Seo-joon's throat. He watched her cough, a dry, painful cough she tried to disguise by turning to the wall. For an instant she swayed, leaning on the cold metal counter. Before composing herself and returning to the task, her arms plunged into the steaming water. The dignity with which she endured the pain struck Seo-joon's heart. He watched as a customer, a corpulent middle-aged man, rudely gestured at Ji-woo, complaining loudly about the delay in his order. "Hey, dishwasher, don't you serve too? My soup is cold." The tone was disdainful, the voice loud enough to attract the attention of other customers. Ji-woo merely lowered her head, murmuring an almost inaudible "sorry," and hurried to get the soup, her movements slow and hesitant. The chef, a corpulent man with a stained apron, yelled from the kitchen, "Ji-woo, faster! We don't have all day for you to be dreaming." He lightly nudged her with his elbow as he passed, almost making her drop the tray. She flinched but didn't protest. She just took a deep breath and continued. With each silent humiliation, each muffled cough, each look of disdain she received, Seo-joon's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. The guilt he had buried for years resurfaced, stronger and more overwhelming than ever. He had left her, he had abandoned her, and now, there she was. The woman he loved more than life itself, wasting away before his eyes. The final straw came when the corpulent customer, dissatisfied with the soup, threw the bowl back onto the counter, splashing hot broth onto Ji-woo's blouse. "This is garbage! You're garbage! Call the manager!" he bellowed, and a muffled laugh echoed from a nearby table. Ji-woo, with teary eyes but still without a word of protest, merely picked up a cloth to wipe the stain. The manager, a thin, pale man, approached, but instead of defending Ji-woo, he shook his head in disapproval. "Kim Ji-woo, please be more careful. We can't afford to annoy customers." It was enough. The sight of Ji-woo's broken dignity, the blatant injustice, the pain she endured with such resilience, all exploded within Park Seo-joon. The love he thought had gone dormant was, in fact, just waiting to be rekindled by this vision of her fragility and strength. He took a step forward. His voice, when it sounded, was calm, but carried an authority that silenced the restaurant's chatter. "Excuse me," he said, addressing the manager and the customer. "I believe there's a misunderstanding here." All eyes turned to him. Ji-woo, stunned, looked up and her eyes met his. The instant recognition, the surprise and the pain on her face were indescribable. Seo-joon ignored her for a moment, focusing on the manager. "I'd like to speak with the owner of this establishment now." His voice was polished steel. "And please prepare the bill for all customers. From this moment on, all meals are on me." A shocked silence hung in the air. The manager blinked, confused. The corpulent customer frowned. Seo Jun then turned to Ji-woo, his eyes fixed on hers, the intensity of his gaze promising a world of things that time had not erased. He extended his hand to her, a gesture that was at once an apology, a promise, and a declaration. "Ji-woo," he said, his voice now soft but firm so everyone could hear. "You don't have to do this anymore. Come with me." The silence that followed Park Seo-jun's words was not just the absence of sound. It was a vacuum, a black hole that swallowed any noise, any thought. All eyes, previously fixed on the scene of Ji-woo's humiliation, were now glued to Seo-jun, then to Ji-woo, and back to Seo-jun. The offer to pay all the bills was shocking, but the invitation to Ji-woo, "You don't have to do this anymore, come with me," was an earthquake. Ji-woo, her hand still clutching the dirty cloth, felt the ground spin. Her heart, already exhausted, began to beat erratically, a frenzied drum against her ribs. Seo-jun, Park Seo-jun. The name echoed in her mind, a forgotten melody, now played loud and clear. Her eyes, clouded with unshed tears and exhaustion, met his. The man before her was not the Seo-jun she knew, the ambitious and passionate young businessman. This was a more mature, more imposing man with an aura of power that filled the space. But his eyes were the same eyes that once looked at her with adoration, now looked at her with a mix of pain, guilt, and unwavering determination. She couldn't speak. Her throat was dry, tight. The shame of being seen in that state, in that place, by him, was almost unbearable. She wanted to flee, to hide, to disappear, but her feet seemed rooted to the restaurant's dirty floor. The manager, a thin, pale man, finally found his voice, though it came out as a squeak. "Excuse me, sir, what do you mean? Who are you? And Kim Ji-woo?" "She's working." He tried to sound authoritative, but his voice trembled. Seo-jun didn't avert his gaze from Ji-woo. His outstretched hand remained firm, a silent but powerful invitation. "I am Park Seo-jun," he declared, his voice resonating with a calm that contrasted with the tension in the air. "And Kim Ji-woo is my ex-wife." The revelation landed like a bombshell. Murmurs erupted among the customers. The corpulent customer, who had been shouting moments before, was now pale, his mouth slightly agape. The chef, who had just nudged Ji-woo, froze in place. Ji-woo felt her face burn. Ex-wife. The word was a weight, an exposed scar. She wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that he was mistaken, that she wasn't his anymore. But the truth was, at that moment, she didn't know who she was. Seo-jun finally shifted his gaze from Ji-woo to the manager, and the intensity in his eyes made the man take a step back. "I didn't ask if she's working. I said she doesn't have to do this anymore, and I want to speak with the owner. Now." He emphasized the last word, and the manager, visibly intimidated, hurried to the back of the restaurant, presumably in search of the owner. The corpulent customer, trying to regain his composure, coughed. "Look here, sir. Whoever you are, she served me cold soup and she's incompetent." Seo-jun turned slowly to the man, his eyes dark and dangerous. "Incompetent," he repeated, his voice dangerously low. "You humiliated her. You threw food at her, and you dare to call her incompetent." He took a step towards the customer, who instinctively recoiled. "I suggest you apologize to her. Immediately." The man swallowed hard, looking at Seo-jun's tense muscles, at the determination on his face. I didn't mean to," he stammered. "Apologize," Seo-jun insisted, his voice a thread of steel. The customer, under everyone's gaze and Seo-jun's pressure, finally mumbled, "I'm sorry, ma'am." Ji-woo watched the scene as if it were a fever dream. The defense, the protection. It was something she hadn't felt in years. A wave of emotions hit her. Gratitude, anger, confusion, and a pang of something that dangerously resembled hope. Seo Jun turned back to her, his hand still extended. "Jiwoo, please, come." There was a silent plea in his eyes, a recognition of her pain and a desperate desire to take her away from there. She looked at his hand, then at his face. The decision was made not by reason, but by instinct for survival. Her body was exhausted, her soul wounded. That invitation, however strange and frightening, was a lifeline. Slowly, hesitantly, she extended her own hand, dirty and rough, and placed it in his. The touch was a shock. His skin was warm and firm, a stark contrast to the coldness and roughness she was accustomed to. Seo Jun squeezed her hand gently, but with a possessiveness that sent a shiver through her. He gently pulled her out of the kitchen, through the silent tables, under the curious and shocked gazes of everyone. As they passed through the door, the cool Seoul night air hit her, a gust of freedom and uncertainty. The street was busy, but the noise of cars and people seemed distant. She was out of Grandma's flavor, out of that daily hell. Seo Jun didn't let go of her. He guided her to a black luxury car, parked discreetly on the sidewalk. He opened the passenger door for her. "Get in, Jiwoo," he said, his voice softer now that they were alone, but still carrying an urgency she couldn't ignore. Jiwoo, still in shock, obeyed. The car's interior was immaculate, smelling of new leather and something expensive, a world away from the smell of grease and despair that had enveloped her for years. She sank into the soft seat, feeling the fatigue of 5 years weigh on her. Seo Jun closed the door and walked around, getting into the driver's seat. He didn't start the car immediately. Instead, he turned to her, his eyes fixed on her pale, marked face. "Jiwoo," he began, his voice choked. "I'm so sorry, so very sorry." The words, so long awaited and so unexpected, were the final straw. The tears she had held back for so long finally rolled down her cheeks, hot and bitter. She didn't know if they were tears of sadness, relief, or an old anger that refused to die. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. And his hand, still holding hers, was proof of that. The future, once a dark fog, now seemed an unknown abyss, but perhaps, just perhaps, with a faint light at the bottom. Jiwoo's crying, silent at first, soon turned into uncontrollable sobs that shook her fragile body. Tears streamed down, washing away the dirt and fatigue from her face, but not the pain accumulated in her soul. Seo Jun watched, motionless, his heart aching with every tremor. His hand still held hers, a tenuous but unbreakable link between past and present. He didn't let go, nor did he try to calm her with empty words. He knew she needed to let it out, that 5 years of suffering were exploding at that moment. The silence of the car was filled only by the sound of her crying and the accelerated beating of Seo Jun's own heart. He felt guilt gnawing at him, a slow poison that had accompanied him for years, but which now, seeing her so broken, seemed unbearable. When the sobs began to subside, replaced by a more contained weeping, Jiwoo finally lifted her head. Her eyes were red and swollen, but there was a spark of something in them that was not just pain. It was anger. "Why?" Her voice came out hoarse, almost inaudible. "Why now, Seo Jun?" He took a deep breath, preparing for the torrent of emotions he knew would come. I didn't know, Jiwoo. I swear, I didn't know you were like this." She laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Didn't know? And what did you expect? That I'd be living a life of luxury after everything that happened? That I'd be fine?" Her voice gained strength, laden with resentment. "You left me. You abandoned me when I needed you most, and now you show up like a savior after 5 years." Seo Jun felt a knot in his throat. Her words were knives, but he knew he deserved every one of them. "I know I hurt you, Jiwoo, more than anything, and not a day goes by that I don't regret it." He squeezed her hand more firmly. "But I didn't abandon you. I was a coward. I was lost, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. Coward, she repeated, irony dripping from every syllable. You're a chaebol, Park Seo-jun, a millionaire. You never knew what it was like to be a coward. You only know what it's like to have power. Power that didn't bring me happiness, he retorted, his voice low and sincere. Power that didn't bring you back. He hesitated, looking at her face, searching for some sign that she would listen to him. I looked for you, Ji-woo, for years, but you disappeared. Nobody knew where you were. I didn't want to be found, she confessed, her voice weak again. I wanted to disappear, to forget that I was once Mrs. Park, to forget everything. Her confession hit him like a punch to the gut. I understand, he said, his voice choked, but when I saw you today, like that, I couldn't leave you there. He paused, his eyes fixed on hers. You're sick, Ji-woo. You're exhausted. You need help. She looked away, shame returning to dominate her. I don't need your charity, Seo-jun. It's not charity, he insisted, his voice firm. It's the least I can do. It's what I should have done 5 years ago. He released her hand for a moment to start the car, the engine purring softly. I'm going to take you to a safe place, for you to rest, for you to recover. Where? She asked, distrust evident in her tone. To your mansion, for me to be the maid now? He looked at her, the pain in his eyes palpable. Never. I would never do that to you. I'm going to take you to a place where you can have peace, where you can feel safe, and where I can try somehow to fix what I broke. He put the car in gear, and it began to move smoothly through the busy Seoul street. I know you don't trust me. I know you have every reason to hate me. But please, Ji-woo, give me a chance. Just one chance to help you. Ji-woo looked out the window, the city lights passing quickly. The world outside seemed unreal, distant. She was in a luxury car, next to the man who had loved her and destroyed her, the one who saved her from that hell, but who also threw her into it. The future was still an abyss, but the darkness seemed a little less dense, and his hand, which now rested on the steering wheel, seemed to promise a light, however faint. She didn't answer, but she also didn't ask him to stop. And for Seo-jun, at that moment, that was enough. The luxury car glided through the illuminated streets of Seoul, a cocoon of silence and tension amidst the city's hustle and bustle. Ji-woo continued to look out the window, the tears dry on her cheeks, leaving salty trails. Seo-jun's hand rested on the steering wheel, but she could feel the intensity of his gaze on her, even without facing him. The air in the car was heavy, laden with unspoken words and open wounds. Ji-woo, his voice broke the silence, soft, almost a whisper. Are you cold? She didn't answer immediately. She felt a chill, yes, but it wasn't from the air conditioning. It was the chill of uncertainty, of fear of what would come next. Finally, she shook her head negatively, without averting her gaze from the passing urban landscape. I know you have many questions, he continued, his voice laden with a patience she didn't expect. And I promise I will answer all of them. But first, you need to rest, eat something decent, and see a doctor. The mention of a doctor made her stomach churn. She knew she was sick, but the idea of someone else confirming her fragility terrified her. I don't need a doctor, she murmured, her voice hoarse. I'm fine. Seo-jun sighed, a sound of frustration and concern. No, Ji-woo, you're not. Your eyes are sunken, your skin is pale, you can barely stand. Please don't make things difficult. Make things difficult. She finally turned to him, her red eyes flashing with renewed anger. Do you think I'm making things difficult? You left me alone, Seo-jun. You threw me into hell, and now you expect me to just accept your help? He gripped the steering wheel, his jaw tense. I know my actions were unforgivable. I'm not asking you to forgive them now. I'm asking you to allow me to take care of you, if only for a moment. You need it. Take care of me, she laughed, a dry, bitter sound. You don't know what it's like to take care of someone. Seo Jun. You only know what it's like to have everything and then discard what's no longer useful. The accusation struck him squarely. He stopped the car at a red light, turning completely to her. That's not true, Jiwoo. I never discarded you. I got lost. I was in a dark place and made terrible mistakes, but I never stopped caring about you. Then why didn't you look for me sooner? Her voice was a lament. Why did you wait until you saw me in that deplorable state? Is it to ease your conscience, Seo Jun, to feel like a hero? No, he vehemently denied, his voice choked. I looked for you, Jiwoo. For years, I hired detectives. I went to every place I thought you might be, but you didn't want to be found, and I respected that, however much it hurt. He paused, his gaze fixed on hers. But today, when I saw you, I couldn't leave you there to die. The words "to die" hit her hard. She knew he wasn't exaggerating. That restaurant was sucking her life away, drop by drop. The traffic light turned green, and he started driving again. Where are we going? She asked again, her voice lower, anger giving way to exhaustion. To an apartment, he replied. It's a discreet, safe place, away from everything. You'll have privacy, and I'll ensure you have everything you need to recover. No one will bother you there. And you? She questioned, distrust still present. Will you stay there too? He hesitated for a moment. I'll be nearby, on a different floor if you prefer. But I need to make sure you're okay, that you're safe. Jiwoo looked at her own hands, dirty and rough, a reflection of her recent life. The contrast with the luxury of the car and the promise of a safe apartment was overwhelming. She was too tired to fight, too tired to resist. The idea of a clean, warm place where she didn't have to work to exhaustion was an almost irresistible temptation. The car stopped in front of a modern, elegant building, with discreet security guards at the entrance. Seo Jun turned off the engine and turned to her, his eyes pleading. Please, Jiwoo, just let me help. For today. She looked at the imposing building, then at his face, which seemed older, more marked by guilt than she remembered. The decision wasn't about forgiving him or even trusting him. It was about her own survival. With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all her suffering, Jiwoo nodded slowly. All right, she whispered, her voice almost inaudible. For today. Visible relief flooded Seo Jun's face. He extended his hand to her, not to hold it, but as a silent invitation to get out of the car. Jiwoo followed him, each step a mix of apprehension and a strange, fragile hope. The abyss was still there, but perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't falling alone. Jiwoo followed Seo Jun out of the car, the cool, soul night air feeling like a shock after the stuffy warmth of the vehicle. The building before them was imposing, of glass and steel, with a discreet doorman who nodded to Seo Jun with almost reverent respect. The lobby was an oasis of polished marble and soft lighting, a stark contrast to the dirt and chaos of the restaurant where she had spent the last few years. Her every step on the gleaming floor seemed to echo her own inadequacy, her stained clothes and exhausted body. Seo Jun didn't touch her, but his presence beside her was an anchor. He guided her to a private elevator, which ascended silently, taking them away from the world below. Jiwoo observed her pale, tired reflection in the elevator mirror, almost not recognizing herself. The woman staring back had empty eyes and a scarred soul. When the doors opened, they revealed an equally elegant corridor leading to a single door. Seo Jun opened it with a card, and Jiwoo hesitated on the threshold. The apartment was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city's twinkling lights. The decor was minimalist, in neutral tones, but every piece of furniture exuded luxury and comfort. It wasn't his mansion, but it was a world away from anything she could have dreamed of. It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice hoarse with admiration and shock. "It's a place where you can have peace," Seo-jun said, his voice soft, almost apologetic. "No one will bother you here. It's yours, for as long as you need it." He indicated a soft, inviting sofa. "Please, sit. You need to rest." Ji-woo felt her legs weaken and sank into the soft upholstery, which seemed to embrace her. The smell of cleanliness and freshness was intoxicating, so different from the persistent odor of grease and detergent that had accompanied her. Seo-jun went to a small, open kitchen and grabbed a bottle of chilled mineral water, handing it to her. "Drink slowly. You're dehydrated." She obeyed, feeling the cool water slide down her dry throat, an immediate relief. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, distrust still battling gratitude. He sat in an armchair opposite her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I already told you, Ji-woo, it's the least I can do. I hurt you. I left you at a time when you needed me most. There's no excuse for that." He took a deep breath. "But I can't see you like this and do nothing. I'm not that kind of monster." "You don't know what I went through," she retorted, her voice choked. "You don't know what it's like to have to fight for every meal, for every day, while your body is failing." "I don't know, and I'm sorry for that," he replied, the pain in his eyes genuine. "But I can try to understand, and I can try to fix what I broke, starting by ensuring you're safe, warm, and fed." He stood up. "There's a bathroom here. You can take a hot bath. I've already provided some clean, comfortable clothes for you, and then I'll order something for us to eat." Ji-woo looked at her own hands, dirty and rough, and then at the offer of a hot bath. The idea of washing away years of dirt and fatigue was almost overwhelming. I have nothing to wear," she murmured. "It's all there," he assured, pointing to a door. "Don't worry about anything. Just take care of yourself. For today." The word "today" echoed in her mind. A truce, a pause in the battle. She stood up, swaying slightly, and walked towards the bathroom, feeling Seo-jun's gaze on her back. Inside, she found a deep, gleaming bathtub, soft towels, and piles of new clothes. Silk pajamas, a plush bathrobe. It was like a dream. She closed the door, and the sound of water filling the tub was the first sound of peace she had heard in a long time. As the warm water enveloped her aching body, Ji-woo allowed herself to cry, not out of anger, but out of a deep weariness and a strange, fragile hope. Outside, Seo-jun waited, guilt weighing on his heart, but a renewed determination in his eyes. He wouldn't let her fall again, not this time. The steam filled the bathroom, fogging the mirror and enveloping Ji-woo in a warm, humid cocoon. She felt the dirt and sweat of years of hard work run off her skin, taking with it a part of the weight she carried. The perfumed soap, the gentle shampoo, each touch was a caress she hadn't received in a long time. Her fingers, once rough and calloused, began to soften in the water, and she watched them, almost as if they belonged to someone else. The image of her reflection in the mirror, once cleared of steam, was shocking. The paleness, the deep dark circles, the accentuated thinness. But for the first time in a long time, there was no restaurant grime, no feverish glow of exhaustion. There was just a tired but clean woman. A part of her felt guilty for enjoying such luxury, while the other, weaker and more exhausted, simply surrendered to the feeling of well-being. Stepping out of the tub, she wrapped herself in the plush bathrobe, feeling the softness of the fabric against her sensitive skin. The clean clothes Seo-jun had provided were silk pajamas, a soft light blue. It was something she would never have bought for herself, an unthinkable luxury. As she put them on, she felt strangely light, as if the fabric could float. It was a stark contrast to the old, stained clothes she had worn for years. She combed her wet hair with the new brush she found, and for the first time, she caught a glimpse of herself before the fall. Outside the bathroom, Seo-jun sat on the sofa, his gaze fixed on the closed door. Every minute that passed was an eternity. He had ordered a light soup and herbal tea, imagining that Ji-woo wouldn't be able to eat anything heavy. Guilt gnawed at him, but the determination to protect her was even stronger. He had failed her once, but he wouldn't fail again. He thought of the detectives he hired, the cold leads, the frustration of not finding her. And now she was there just a few meters away, so close and yet so distant. When the bathroom door opened, Seo-jun instinctively stood up. Ji-woo emerged, her damp hair falling over her shoulders, the silk pajamas enveloping her slender figure. She was still pale and fragile, but the visible dirt and despair had been washed away. Her eyes, though still laden with sadness, seemed a little less empty. He watched her in silence, a wave of emotions hitting him. Relief, sadness, and a love that had never died, only gone dormant. Are you feeling better?" he asked, his voice a little hoarse. Ji-woo nodded, unable to speak immediately. The comfort of the clothes, the feeling of cleanliness was almost overwhelming. She sat on the sofa, feeling a little dizzy. "The food is coming," he said, indicating the coffee table where he had already placed a teapot and cups. "A light soup. For you." She looked at him, distrust still present, but mixed with a reluctant gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, the word almost lost in the air. The doorbell rang, and Seo-jun went to answer it, returning with a tray that held a steaming bowl of abalone soup and some light side dishes. He placed it on the coffee table, within her reach. "Please eat," he encouraged, his voice soft. "You need your strength." Ji-woo picked up the spoon, hesitating. The smell of the soup was delicious, but her stomach was constricted. She took a spoonful, and the warm, comforting taste spread through her mouth. It was the first decent food she had eaten in days, perhaps weeks. Tears welled up again, but this time they were tears of relief and a hunger that went beyond the physical. Seo-jun watched her eat, his heart aching. He knew that food wouldn't heal the deep wounds, but it was a start, a small step towards the redemption he so desired. The room was silent, only the soft sound of Ji-woo's spoon against the bowl. The tension was still there, palpable, but there was also a silent truce, a mutual acknowledgement that, for now, they were in new territory. The abyss still existed, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could begin to build a bridge. Ji-woo finished the soup, feeling a little stronger, but still exhausted. The warmth of the food spread through her body, calming the internal tremor. She pushed the empty bowl aside, and Seo-jun, without a word, removed it and took it to the kitchen. Upon returning, he sat back in the armchair, his gaze fixed on her, but without pressure. "I don't understand," Ji-woo broke the silence, her voice still weak, but with a new firmness. "Why are you doing this? After everything, after 5 years. Seo-jun took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on hers. "I already told you, Ji-woo. I hurt you, I abandoned you, and I never forgave myself for it. I looked for you, for years, but you disappeared." He paused, the pain evident in his voice. "When I saw you today, in that place, I couldn't believe it. The woman I loved, whom I swore to protect, reduced to this." "I didn't ask for your help," she retorted, a flash of wounded pride in her eyes. "I was managing." "Managing? Ji-woo, you were sick, mistreated, on the verge of collapse," he countered, his voice rising slightly but quickly calming. "Don't lie to yourself, and don't lie to me. You didn't deserve that. No one does." She looked away, his words hitting a painful truth. "And what do you want now? For me to thank you? For me to pretend nothing happened?" "No," he said, his voice soft, but laden with an intensity that made her face him again. I don't want you to pretend anything. I want you to heal. I want you to have the life you deserve, the life I took from you. He leaned forward, the gesture small but significant. This apartment is yours, indefinitely. I've already arranged for a medical team to examine you tomorrow right here. You don't need to go to a hospital, and you don't need to worry about money ever again. Jiwoo looked at him shocked. Money? You're offering me money? Is that it? Charity? It's not charity, Jiwoo, he said, his voice firm. It's reparation. It's the least I can do to try to fix what I broke. I know money can't buy back lost time or the pain you felt, but it can give you security. It can give you a chance to get back on your feet, to have dignity again. I have dignity, she whispered, her voice choked, tears returning to her eyes. Even washing dishes, I had my dignity. I know you did, he agreed, the pain in his eyes mirroring hers. But you shouldn't have to fight so hard for it. I want you to focus on your health, on recovering, and then, if you want, I can help you find a new purpose, a new beginning, whatever you want. He stood up and walked to the window, observing the city lights. I know you may not believe me, but I won't give up on you, Jiwoo. Not this time. I won't let you fall again. Jiwoo watched him, her body trembling slightly. The offer was overwhelming, the promise of a life without the constant struggle for survival, without physical and emotional pain. But distrust was a high wall, built brick by brick over 5 years of abandonment. She wanted to refuse, wanted to scream that she didn't need him, but the truth was, she was too exhausted to fight. The idea of a doctor, of not worrying about the next meal, was a balm for her wounded soul. I don't know what to say, she finally managed to murmur, her voice almost inaudible. Seo-jun turned to her, his eyes full of cautious hope. Don't say anything now, just rest. Think about it. But know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. The room fell into a heavy silence, but this time it wasn't a silence of tension, but of an uncertain future, hanging by the thin thread of a promise of redemption. Jiwoo closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words, the weight of her own exhaustion, and the strange, terrifying possibility of a new beginning. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant sound of city traffic and the accelerated beating of her own heart. She couldn't process everything. It was too much. The offer was grand, almost unreal, and distrust, a faithful companion for so many years, screamed in her mind. Seo-jun watched her, patient. He knew he couldn't force her. The wound was too deep, the betrayal too real. He sat back in the armchair, maintaining a respectful distance. There's no rush, Jiwoo, he said, his voice low and calm. Just rest. The master bedroom is ready for you. I'll stay in the guest room or on the sofa if you prefer. Jiwoo opened her eyes, staring at him. The mention of the master bedroom, a space she knew to be the most luxurious, made a knot form in her throat. It was a gesture of respect, of recognition that she was the priority there. I can't, she whispered, her voice choked. It's too much. It's not too much, he insisted, a faint, sad smile on his lips. It's the least. You need comfort, a safe place to recover. He stood up again, walking slowly towards her. I'll show you the room. She hesitated, but exhaustion overcame resistance. She stood up, the silk pajamas brushing against her skin, feeling strangely exposed. Seo-jun guided her down a wide corridor to a dark wooden door. As he opened it, Jiwoo held her breath. The room was enormous, with a king-size bed covered in white silk sheets, a panoramic view of the illuminated city, and a private bathroom that looked like a spa. It's yours, he said, gesturing to the space. I'll withdraw now. If you need anything at all, There's a phone by the bed. Just dial the reception, or me. My number is in the directory. He turned to leave but stopped at the door, looking at her one last time. Sleep well, Ji-woo. And please try to believe that I'm doing this for you, not for me. He closed the door softly, leaving her alone in the immensity of the room. Ji-woo walked to the bed, feeling the softness of the sheets under her fingers. She sat down, and the mattress yielded gently, embracing her tired body. The tears, which she thought she had exhausted, rolled down her face again. They weren't tears of sadness or anger, but of overwhelming confusion, of a relief that frightened her. She lay down, sinking into the soft pillows, and for the first time in years, felt a glimpse of peace. But even in peace, the shadow of the past lingered, a constant reminder that trust was a luxury she couldn't easily afford. The night was a mix of deep sleep and abrupt awakenings. Each time she woke, the reality of the luxury shocked her, and Seo-jun's silent presence in the apartment was a constant reminder of her new and precarious situation. She felt guilty for enjoying such comfort, while the image of the restaurant, the dirty dishes, and the humiliations was still fresh in her mind. When the sun began to peek through the curtains, Ji-woo was already awake. She got up, feeling a little less exhausted but still weak. Upon leaving the room, she found Seo-jun in the living room, already dressed in an impeccable suit, reading a newspaper. He looked up when he saw her, and a small, almost imperceptible smile appeared on his lips. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than in a long time," she admitted, her voice still a little hoarse. "Breakfast is on the table," he indicated, "and the medical team should arrive soon." Ji-woo felt a shiver. The idea of being examined, of having her fragility exposed, made her uncomfortable. She sat at the table, where there was a variety of fresh fruits, yogurt, and herbal tea. She took a slice of melon, feeling the sweetness explode in her mouth. Minutes later, the doorbell rang. Seo-jun got up to answer it, and soon returned with 2 women and a man, all dressed in discreet medical uniforms. The head doctor, a middle-aged woman with a gentle smile, introduced herself. "Good morning, Ms. Kim. I'm Dr. Lee. Mr. Park informed us about your condition. We're here to help you." Ji-woo felt embarrassed, but Dr. Lee's kindness was comforting. She nodded, allowing the team to guide her to an area of the room that had been discreetly prepared with medical equipment. Seo-jun remained at a distance, watching with an expression of concern. The examination was thorough but respectful. They checked her blood pressure, took blood samples, listened to her lungs and heart. Ji-woo answered the questions in a low voice, feeling increasingly vulnerable. Dr. Lee noted everything seriously, and the glances between the team confirmed her suspicions. After about an hour, Dr. Lee turned to Seo-jun, who approached anxiously. "Ms. Kim is suffering from severe exhaustion, malnutrition, and significant anemia. There are also signs of a mild respiratory infection, likely due to exposure and a weakened immune system. She needs absolute rest, a nutritious diet, and medication for the infection and anemia." She looked at Ji-woo with compassion. "Your body is in a state of extreme exhaustion, Ms. Kim. You need to allow yourself to rest and heal." The doctor's words echoed in the room, confirming what Ji-woo already felt, but which was now an undeniable truth. Seo-jun closed his eyes for an instant, the pain on his face evident. Guilt hit him again, but this time it was accompanied by an iron determination. He wouldn't fail her again. Ji-woo, in turn, felt a strange mixture of shame and relief. The truth of her condition, stated by a professional, was a weight she no longer needed to carry alone. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to stop fighting and allow herself to be cared for. The bridge Seo-jun wanted to build, however fragile, was beginning to seem like a necessary path. Dr. Lee finished giving instructions, her voice soft but firm. We'll leave the prescriptions and a detailed diet plan. A nurse will come daily to monitor your progress and ensure you're taking your medication correctly. And please, no stress. Your body needs peace to heal. She smiled gently at Ji-woo, who felt her face flush with shame. Seo-jun nodded, his eyes fixed on Ji-woo. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Please provide everything necessary. There are no limits. Oh, the medical team departed, leaving a heavy silence in the room. Ji-woo avoided Seo-jun's gaze, feeling naked, exposed in her fragility. The dignity she had fought so hard to maintain in recent years seemed to have crumbled to dust before that diagnosis. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, not knowing exactly what she was apologizing for. For her condition, for the burden she had become. Seo-jun knelt before her, taking her cold hands. There's nothing to be sorry for, Ji-woo. Nothing. It's my fault. I let you get to this point. The pain in his eyes was palpable, an abyss of regret. But I promise you this won't happen again. I will take care of you. I will give you the time and space to heal. She looked at him, tears welling up again. I don't want to be a burden. You will never be a burden to me, he said, his voice choked. Never again. He stood up, his expression now determined. I'll ask them to prepare a nutritious broth for you, and then you'll rest. Don't worry about anything, only about your recovery. Ji-woo felt a strange surrender. The struggle, the resistance, everything seemed to drain away. She was too exhausted to argue, too exhausted to fight against the help that deep down she knew she desperately needed. He guided her back to the room, and she lay down on the soft bed, feeling her body relax a little. Minutes later, he returned with a steaming bowl of chicken broth and a glass of water. The aroma was comforting, and her stomach rumbled in protest. Try to eat a little, he encouraged, sitting in the armchair beside the bed, maintaining a respectful distance. She took the spoon, the warm broth sliding down her throat, warming her from the inside out. Each sip was a reminder of her hunger, of her neglect. She ate slowly, feeling a faint energy begin to return. When she finished, Seo-jun took the empty bowl. Good, now rest. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. Ji-woo nodded, closing her eyes. Sleep came quickly, a deep and restorative sleep, unlike anything she had experienced in years. She slept for hours, her body finally yielding to the rest it so desperately needed. When she woke, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She felt a little stronger, her head less heavy. The reality of the situation, however, was still overwhelming. She was in a luxury apartment, under the care of the man who had abandoned her, but who now seemed determined to redeem himself. She got up and walked to the window, watching the city lights come on. Life outside continued, indifferent to her small bubble of drama and redemption. The medication and rest were already taking effect, but the healing of her soul was a much longer and more uncertain journey. Seo-jun entered the room, carrying a tray with herbal tea and some fruits. He saw her at the window, her fragile silhouette against the sunset. "How do you feel?" he asked, his voice low. "A little better," she admitted, turning to him. I don't know how to thank you." He placed the tray on the bedside table and approached, stopping at a safe distance. "You don't need to thank me, Ji-woo. Just focus on getting well. That's all I ask." He looked at her with an intensity that sent a shiver through her. "I know it's difficult, but please allow me to do this. Allow me to try to fix what I broke." Ji-woo watched him, distrust still present, but now mixed with a pang of something softer, something she didn't dare to name. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps just the exhaustion of fighting alone. The bridge he was building brick by brick was beginning to seem less fragile, and the idea of crossing it, however terrifying, was beginning to seem like a real possibility. The healing journey was just beginning, and she knew it wouldn't just be physical. It would be a healing for the heart, for the mind, and perhaps, just perhaps, for the future they could have. Seo Jun's words echoed in Jiwoo's mind as she watched the city lights come on. I know it's difficult. Allow me to try to fix what I broke. Hate him. Yes, she hated him with an intensity that almost consumed her in the first years after the divorce, but she also loved him, and that duality was a silent torture, a burden she carried alone. The bridge he was building was made of promises, and she knew how easily promises could crumble, leaving behind only rubble and more pain. But the exhaustion was a more relentless enemy than distrust. She needed peace, she needed healing, and his offer, however frightening, was the only hand extended to her. In the following days, Jiwoo's life transformed into a routine of care and rest. The nurse, Mrs. Choi, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile and kind eyes, arrived promptly every morning. She was efficient but never intrusive, monitoring Jiwoo's blood pressure, administering medication, and ensuring she ate the nutritious meals prepared by a private chef Seo Jun had hired. Jiwoo, initially reluctant to accept so much attention, began to yield to Mrs. Choi's kindness and professionalism, feeling a subtle relief at no longer having to fight against her own fragility. Seo Jun was always present, but never intrusive. He worked in his makeshift office in the living room, making calls, reading documents, but his eyes always found Jiwoo. He watched her as she ate, as the nurse examined her, as she tried to read a book he had left on her bedside table. He was a silent but constant presence, a living reminder of his promise. His determination to care for her was palpable, and Jiwoo felt strangely protected, even with the barrier of distrust still erected between them. One afternoon, feeling a little stronger, Jiwoo decided to go to the kitchen to get a glass of water. She got out of bed, feeling slightly dizzy, but determined to do something for herself. Upon reaching the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator, but her hands trembled slightly. Before she could grab the pitcher, Seo Jun appeared beside her, as if he had a sixth sense for her needs. "Let me do that," he said softly, taking the pitcher and filling a glass. He handed it to her, his eyes fixed on hers, without a hint of judgment. "You still need to rest, Jiwoo. Don't exert yourself." She drank the water, feeling the coolness soothe her throat. "I'm not an invalid," she murmured, her voice weak, but with a trace of her old stubbornness. It was a remnant of the proud woman she had always been, even at her worst. He smiled, a sad smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I know you're not, but your body needs time. Please, allow me to take care of you. It's the least I can do." He didn't touch her, but the intensity of his gaze was almost a touch, a silent promise of unwavering support. Days turned into a week. Jiwoo's physical health visibly improved. The paleness diminished, her eyes had a little more sparkle, and she could walk without feeling overwhelming exhaustion. But emotional healing was a much slower process, an internal battle she fought with every moment of silence. One evening, as Seo Jun accompanied her back to the bedroom after dinner, she stopped at the door, turning to him. The question that had tormented her for days finally escaped her lips. "Why are you doing this, Seo Jun?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, laden with a vulnerability that frightened her. "After everything, why now?" He looked at her, his expression serious, old pain reflected in his eyes. "Because I never stopped loving you, Jiwoo. And because I saw you in that restaurant, I saw what life did to you, what I did to you, and I can't live with that." He took a step forward, closing the distance between them, the gravity of his words filling the space. "I know I can't erase the past, but I can try to build a different future, a future where you never have to suffer like this again." Tears streamed down Ji-woo's face. They weren't tears of pure anger or sadness, but of a deep pain mixed with an incipient hope that terrified her. I'm scared, she confessed. Her voice choked, the barrier of her resilience finally giving way. I'm scared to believe again. Seo-jun reached out, hesitated for an instant, and then gently touched her face, wiping a tear with his thumb. His touch was soft, reverent. I know. And I'll give you all the time in the world to trust me again. I'll prove to you every day that I'm different, that we can be different. He looked into her eyes, the promise in his gaze as vast as the ocean, as deep as the regret he carried. The bridge was solidifying, brick by brick, not just with comfort and care, but with the vulnerability and determination he demonstrated. Ji-woo felt a knot in her throat. The idea of a future, once unthinkable, began to take shape, fragile but present. The healing of the body was one step. The healing of the heart, it seemed, was just beginning and would require a courage she didn't know if she still possessed. Seo-jun's touch on her face, the promise in his eyes, reverberated in Ji-woo long after he pulled away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The vulnerability she had exposed to him, the confessed fear, was unknown territory. She had always prided herself on her strength, her ability to endure. But now, under his gentle gaze, that facade seemed to crumble. The idea of trusting again was terrifying, like balancing on the edge of a precipice. But the alternative, continuing alone, in the darkness, was even more desolate. In the days that followed, Seo-jun's presence became an intrinsic part of her healing process. He not only provided material comfort, but also the emotional support she didn't know she needed. One morning, as Mrs. Choi helped her dress, Ji-woo noticed a small bouquet of fresh daisies on the bedside table. Daisies, they were her favorite flowers. A detail she thought he had long forgotten. A knot formed in her throat. There was no note, just the silent presence of the flowers, a reminder that he remembered. Later, Seo-jun found her in the living room, where she was sitting, looking out at the city. He approached, holding 2 cups of herbal tea. I remember you liked chamomile to calm your nerves, he said, extending a cup to her. Ji-woo took the cup, her hands still slightly trembling. You remember many things, she murmured, without looking directly at him. I remember everything about you, Ji-woo, he replied, his voice low, laden with a sincerity that made her tremble. He sat in the armchair opposite, at a respectful distance, but his eyes never left her. I know the past is a heavy shadow, and I know I was responsible for much of that shadow. Ji-woo finally faced him. Why didn't you look for me sooner, Seo-jun? Why did you wait 5 years to show up? The question came out with a pang of bitterness, old pain resurfacing. He sighed, his gaze distant for a moment. I was lost, Ji-woo, lost in my own guilt and pride. I convinced myself that you were better off without me, that I would only bring more pain. I buried myself in work, building my empire, trying to fill the void you left, but nothing worked. Every success was hollow, every victory meaningless. And then I saw you. He paused, her image in the restaurant, fragile and humiliated, still etched in his mind. I saw the woman I loved reduced to that, and I realized that my pride and my cowardice had condemned you to a life of suffering. That's when I knew I couldn't run anymore, that I had to try to fix it, even if you never forgave me. His words, spoken with brutal honesty, struck Ji-woo deep within. It wasn't an excuse, but a confession. She saw the pain in his eyes, the genuine regret. The anger she held began to dissolve, replaced by a melancholy understanding. I suffered a lot, Seo-jun, she said, her voice choked. I thought I would never recover. I hated you for a while, but I also missed you, every single day. He stood up and knelt in front of her, taking her hands. His touch was warm and firm, an anchor. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every tear you shed, for every humiliation you endured. I swear, Jiwoo, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it. I want to give you the life you deserve, the life I stole from you. Jiwoo looked at their clasped hands, then at his face. The distance between them, which once seemed insurmountable, now seemed to shrink with each beat of her heart. The bridge was no longer fragile. It was being built with truth and vulnerability. "What do you mean by the rest of your life?" she asked, her voice almost inaudible, her heart pounding in her chest. He squeezed her hands. "I mean, I want you back, Jiwoo, not as a favor, not out of guilt, but because I love you. I want us to be us again. I want to build a future with you, a future where you are loved, protected, and happy, a future where you never have to fight alone again." Tears returned, but this time they weren't just of pain. There was a complex mixture of relief, fear, and overwhelming hope. The courage she thought she had lost began to resurface, fueled by the sincerity in his eyes. The healing of the heart, she realized, wasn't just about forgetting the past, but about daring to believe in a different future. And for the first time in a long time, the idea of us didn't seem so frightening. The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of their breaths and the accelerated beating of Jiwoo's heart. She felt the warmth of Seo Jun's hands in hers, an anchor amidst the whirlwind of emotions. His proposal was grand, almost unreal, but the pain and sincerity in his eyes were palpable. "Seo Jun," she began, her voice choked, not knowing how to articulate the avalanche of feelings. Her image in the restaurant, the humiliation, the exhaustion, all of it was still fresh in her memory. But now, before him, kneeling, with the promise of a future on his lips, the darkness seemed to recede, even if minimally. He gently interrupted her. "I know it's a lot to ask. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm willing to wait, to fight for you, for as long as it takes. I just ask for a chance, Jiwoo, a chance to prove that I've changed, that our love can be stronger than the pain that separated us." Jiwoo's eyes swept over his face, searching for any sign of falsehood, of manipulation, but found only raw vulnerability and a love that seemed to have withstood time and distance. The daisies on the bedside table, the chamomile tea, the way he watched her with constant concern, small gestures that together formed a mosaic of genuine care and regret. She pulled her hands from his, and for an instant, Seo Jun's fear was visible. But then, Jiwoo reached out and touched his face, her fingertips tracing the line of his jaw. It was a hesitant touch, but laden with a tenderness she didn't know she still possessed for him. I don't know if I can forgive everything, Seo Jun," she confessed, her voice a whisper. "It still hurts. It hurts a lot." He closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing her words, and then opened them, fixing them on hers. "I know, and I don't expect you to forget. I just hope you'll allow me to be by your side as you heal, that you'll allow me to try to erase some of that pain, day after day." Jiwoo removed her hand from his face, but she didn't pull away. She looked out the window at the city stretching below, a world of possibilities and challenges. The life she knew was crumbling, and a new, frightening but tempting one was presenting itself. "I'm not the same woman from 5 years ago," she said, turning to him again. "I'm stronger, but also more broken. I have nothing left to offer, Seo Jun. I lost everything." He stood up, standing before her, and gently held her shoulders. "You have yourself, Jiwoo, and that's all I ever wanted. You don't need to offer me anything but your presence. I will give you back everything you lost, and much more. I will give you the peace, the security, the love you deserve." Jiwoo's heart pounded in her chest. The proposal was not just for a new beginning, but for a redemption she never thought possible. The idea of no longer being alone, of having someone to share the burden, was a balm for her exhausted soul. She still felt the fear, the distrust, But for the first time in a long time, hope was stronger. She looked up at him and a small, almost imperceptible nod escaped her. I can't promise it will be easy, Seo-jun, she said, her voice choked with emotion. But I'm willing to try. A slow, relieved smile spread across Seo-jun's face, lighting up his eyes. It was a smile she hadn't seen in years, a smile that promised a future. He gently pulled her into an embrace that wasn't one of overwhelming passion, but of deep relief, of a silent promise, and of a healing that was finally beginning to take shape. Jiwoo, hesitant at first, finally yielded, nestling into his arms, feeling the warmth and security she had forgotten. The bridge was built. Now it was time to cross it, together. The embrace was a silent symphony of emotions. Jiwoo felt Seo-jun's familiar scent, a mix of expensive cologne and something deeper, which she associated with home, with security. The tears she had held back for so long finally flowed freely, wetting his shirt. He held her firmly, as if fearing she might disappear again, and kissed the top of her head, a gesture of tenderness that made her tremble. I promise, Jiwoo, he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. Never again will you be alone. Never again. She couldn't respond, only held him tighter, letting the exhaustion of years of struggle dissolve in that embrace. It was an embrace of redemption, of forgiveness, and of a tacit promise of an uncertain but now shared future. When they finally separated, Jiwoo's eyes were red, but there was a different sparkle in them, a spark of hope. Seo-jun wiped her tears with his thumbs, his gaze fixed on hers. First, we'll take care of you, he said, his voice soft but laden with determination. You need to rest, to recover. I've already spoken with the doctor. He said you can be discharged tomorrow if you're feeling well. Jiwoo nodded, feeling strangely light. The responsibility that had crushed her seemed to have been in part lifted. Where are we going? She asked, her voice still weak. Seo-jun smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. To a place where you can feel safe, where you can heal, a place where you are the priority. I bought a house. It's big, with a garden. I remembered how much you liked flowers. The mention of the garden brought a pang of nostalgia. She had dreamed of a garden in her previous life with him. You thought of everything, she murmured, surprised. I had 5 years to think, he replied, seriousness returning to his face. And I want you to know it's not charity, Jiwoo. It's love. It's my desire to give you everything you deserve. The next morning, the sun streamed through the hospital room windows, painting the room with a golden light. Jiwoo sat on the edge of the bed, wearing clean clothes Seo-jun had provided. She felt weak, but her fever had subsided, and the pain in her body was less acute. Seo-jun entered the room, holding a small breakfast box and a bouquet of fresh daisies. Good morning, he said, his smile warm. Ready for a new beginning? Jiwoo smiled back, a small but sincere smile. I think so. As they had breakfast, he spoke about the plans. They weren't just plans for her, but for them. He had arranged a team of doctors and therapists to take care of her physical and mental health. He spoke about the foundation he wanted to create in her name to help vulnerable women, a way to transform her pain into purpose. I want you to find your voice again, Jiwoo, he said, taking her hand across the table. For you to realize all your dreams, the ones I helped crush. I will be by your side every step of the way. She looked at him, at the man who had hurt her so deeply, but who was now there, offering not just redemption, but a complete reconstruction of her life. The journey would be long, full of scars to heal and memories to reframe. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the weight of loneliness. Seo-jun, she began, her voice firm, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget the past. but I'm willing to build a future with you." He squeezed her hand, his eyes welling up. "That's all I need, Ji-woo. A chance, and I promise with every fiber of my being that I will make it worth it." As they left the hospital, hand in hand, they were no longer the chaebol and the dishwasher. They were Park Seo-joon and Kim Ji-woo, two souls who had been lost and found each other again, ready to cross the bridge they had built with truth, vulnerability, and the unwavering hope of a love that, despite everything, had survived. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in 5 years, they would face it together, one step at a time, towards a redemption that seemed finally within reach.